Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So here we are on episode 37, 40 years of the band The Skeptics. I have two incredible guests coming on today, and we're going to talk about some very exciting projects. First, I'm going to ask each one of my guests to introduce themselves. So I'm not sure. I'm going to go to Stephen Blickenstaff first. Steve, will you say a few words to our audience? Introduce yourselves. Please tell everyone what you're doing currently. And feel free.
Okay. I'm working on various art projects as they come along and have been doing so for years and years and years. And currently playing theremin with the band The Atomic Mosquitoes. Andy and I, who were in the Skeptics together and will always be in the Skeptics together, are releasing a 45, is that right? No, 40-year-old.
40.
Onto vinyl, which will come out next year. And this was like something that was recorded. What day was it recorded? Do you remember?
It was Valentine's Day, 1985.
Wow.
That's right, 85.
The Inner Ear Studios, yeah. So
that's
we had
incredible.
done one demo before that, but it was our first official, recording, us going into the studio. So,
And I want to make sure I say Stephen Blickenstaff. Stephen Blickenstaff. I didn't say your last name. Andy, will you introduce yourself, please?
sure. Hi, I'm Andy McCutcheon. So I am the guitar player and singer for the Skeptics, and Steve and I and Dennis and Kevin. Has anyone, and of course Ben Steen, founding member. We're all in the Skeptics together, and every couple of years we reunite or do a project. So the most recent one is the one Steve talked about, the 40th anniversary Worry Beads release, which is out currently streaming on all major platforms, but will be out on vinyl sometime early in 2026 with Missing Think Records. So we're pretty excited about that. So yes, every couple of years. I think our last one was 2019 when we played at the Sky Stage concert series, September, right before the pandemic happened. So we're about due to get back together, I think, for another something.
Now that
and I'm a songwriter. I've been, releasing albums, just myself independently, streaming stuff for years. Really, I kind of went on hiatus for a bit, and then during the pandemic in 2020, I started doing a little song a month campaign where I'd release a song every month, and then at the end of the year, I released it as an album. And since then, I've put out 3 or 4 other albums, some of them current things, some of them older projects. And right now I'm working on sort of a part 2 to one of those projects, which was all my old Baltimore cassette 4-track stuff, which I've been transferring to digital and then remixing and trying to preserve the 4-track cassette charm, but also make it a little more palatable for listening. So that's what I'm working on right now. I got a couple of things out.
No, that's pretty incredible. Nick, let's go ahead if you don't mind, and can we pull up the first graphic that we have? And I wanted to take a moment and wish you, there it is, Andy, a belated happy birthday. I just thought that was one of the coolest pictures and images. And I wanted to say, you mentioned the 2019 Sky Stage show. We were part of that. That is on Seven Arts Archives. I encourage everyone to check it out. You can go ahead and bring that down, Nick. Part of this was I got to move this pillow. Forgive me for a minute. I had to move a pillow. Part of the exciting part of this conversation was to be able to go back in time and remember. Andy, I want to say, you are this mythical figure to me. I mean that in every way. In this legendary, all of my friends would tell me about the Skeptics. I never got to see you guys live, but specifically remember Michelle Lally, and she was involved with Doug Smith, and I would hear about Andy McCutcheon. I wanted to share this story too. The first time I ever heard your guys' music, Nick, we can go ahead and pull up. I'm sorry, this is number 3, the Snallygaster album. Forgive me, and then we'll go back to the event page. But the Snallygaster, I wanted to tell this story about how I first listened to you guys. Nelson Cessna had an apartment on Market Street. Chris Spade had this album. He pulled it out for me, and from the first I saw it, I fell in love with it. We listened to it through right there. He lent it to me for a long time. I always thought this was an incredible album. So I thought maybe if you guys don't mind, we could start the conversation and share some reminiscing about recording Snallygaster with both of you guys.
Sounds good. Steve, you want to start, or you want me to?
Yeah, you go ahead. You're a much better speaker.
Oh, it's not true at all. But anyway, I do tend to ramble, so I'll ramble on, and you can just stop me. Yeah, so actually, Worry Beads very much led to this. So, we went down to Don Zientara's Inner Ear studio, which at that time was in his basement in his home in Arlington, Virginia. And we went and we recorded Worry Beads, and that was kind of our first official. We did a demo that we did in my parents' basement, and that was with Ben, all four of us. And then about a year passed. I guess it was maybe the next year. And at that time, Ben had moved on to other projects, and it was just the 3 of us. And we decided, we scraped up our pennies, and we were going to Inner Ear Studio to record a 9-song album or EP, whatever you want to call it. And so, we recorded that, and Dennis sold it at Waxy Maxie's, and Ben sold it at Music Trader, and we sold it at our shows, and it eventually found its way to Bonafide Records. A guy named Rick Knoll, who liked it and wanted to distribute it for us, and did so. And I guess there must have been a little success at that or something, because then he wanted to release an album with us and take us back into Inner Ear Studio, and that was the recording of Snallygaster. So we went down, I think I want to say it was the summer of 1985. So it was really just a few months after Worry Beads. At least I remember it being hot. It didn't come out, I think, until 1986. But we went into the studio, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. I'm not good with numbers or dates. Somewhere around there. Yeah, somewhere in the mid 80s. We went back and we recorded the 14 songs that are on that album, plus a couple more kicking around. That was one of the things we had talked about too, is maybe revisiting some of those. There were 2 or 3 that we just didn't put on the album. I don't think any more could have fit, because we already had 14, and some of the songs but some were long. Of course, Steve did the amazing cover artwork for the album, which I think is a big part of its mystique. And it was really fun. We got to go into the studio on someone else's dime. That was an unfamiliar feeling, because usually we were there, worried about the clock ticking and, how much money we had scraped up to be able to go record. And so Rick was there, and Don. I can't remember if he had anyone assisting him at that time or not. I know later he did. Eli Janney, I think, was on some of our later sessions. But anyway, so that was it. We recorded those. Those were the songs we've been playing for about a year out live in venues in Frederick and Baltimore and DC. So we pretty much went in and knocked it out almost like a live album. We just did all the instrumental tracks with the scratch vocal, and then went back and did the overdubs. But it was really basic stuff. And it was a small little live room. It was a rec room, like a wooden,
right.
Rec room dens. And I think we were pretty loud in there. Pounding through it. Steve, anything I missed or anything you want to add?
Well, I want to follow up with Steve, if you don't mind, with the album cover, and for those not from our area, tell everyone what the Snallygaster is. Tell everyone about a Snallygaster. Not everyone is from South Mountain, so please.
Well, if anyone's into cryptozoology, they'd know about the legend of the Snallygaster, which was a large winged, one-eyed creature that had a squeal like a locomotive whistle, and would snag people and basically, eat them, I suppose. I don't know. But there were lots of stories about the Snallygaster that helped to sell newspapers at the time.
Yeah.
And I think Andy's mother came up with the idea of using Snallygaster as the album title, because we were like
Did.
trying to think would be a good title that would like, work with all these different types of
Mm-hmm.
songs that we have on the
And I
album.
remember initially rejecting that because, how can anything be cool if your parents suggest? So I always felt a little bit bad about that because in the end, I think she made the right call. But at the time, I was like, I don't know, you know. But yeah. And there was a book out about it as well. Well, there was a book about Braddock Heights, and one of the chapters was on the Snallygaster. And I remember it said that even I think Teddy Roosevelt had organized
Yes.
a
A
safari
hunt.
hunting team to
Yeah.
come and try to find it. And
Right.
so, but no, it was perfect. And then of course Steve's rendition of the Snallygaster is amazing, and really sets the tone. And that picture actually of us looking out the window is the Braddock Heights roller rink. And I
Right.
think what did we went up and we took shots of the roller rink, and then we did like in your like studio, we did like sort of selfies for lack of a better term, like we set up a light and stuff and did the dramatic lighting, and then you with your razor and the way everything used to be done before computers put us in.
Yeah, way before Photoshop. In
Yeah,
fact, the
wait.
photo was taken by Bob Kathman,
Oh, that's right.
and it was a black and white photo, so I colorized that and then added our faces to the window. And like you said, it was all cut and paste, so I had to use razor blades and glue and airbrush to try to get rid of cut lines. In fact, what we did was after that it was put together, I had a photo taken of the finished artwork and then went back and touched up that photo to get rid of all the cut lines.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like a very old school way of putting it together.
That
like magic.
I think that's a wonderful segue into our next image. And this was one that I wanted to share with the audience. Nick, if you don't mind bringing up wait a minute. Forgive me. Let's go back to the event page, January 24th of 2026. I got a little bit out of order. One of the things that we've been asking, I've asked each one of you guys to say a few words. We've been asked by the Frederick County Library to put on a very rare history of Frederick's underground music scene, focusing on the 1980s. We've put together a really excellent panel, and I wanted to let you guys know, as well as the audience, we have Rick Knoll of Bonafide Records. He is going to be part of the panel discussion. I'm going to share my time with him. So I was super excited to have Rick Knoll, who you guys have already mentioned, as part of this discussion. I think the records that he recorded, that the fact that they still exist all these years later, are just pretty incredible. So I'm going to ask each one of you guys, if you don't mind, please plug the library program that we're working on, and then we'll get to back to this conversation on the history of the Skeptics. I'll go with Stephen first.
Yeah, go Steve.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
The library the project that we're working on with the Frederick County Library. Share your thoughts with that with the audience, and I wanted to stress that we have Rick Knoll is going to be part of that conversation. So anything that you would say that would encourage people to come out to the event would be greatly appreciated. I'm sure the library would be real happy.
Okay, well, yeah, I haven't actually been to the library in a while, and I'm ashamed of myself for that, and I need to stop by there.
Please come out on the 24th, Steve. We'd love to have you there.
Okay, I'm very excited that Rick's going to be there.
Yeah,
I haven't
me too.
seen Rick in years and years,
Yes.
so
he
that
was
alone will get. What's that?
I think he was at the Skeptics show, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. I saw him at Sky Stage. It might have been the Voodoo Love Gods. I can't remember, but I got to talk to him for the first time. He was a really interesting character, and the words he said to me was, "I just want you to know I didn't make any money." I thought that was funny. But so anything you guys want to say about the project, Rick Knoll, please.
Well, it was fun watching it come together because I first got, I can't remember if it was, I guess it was from you, Don, the group chat that started on Facebook. And then seeing all these people jump on there, Andrew Roth, Brian Sefcik, Pat Fable, Steve, tons of other people too. And it was just great. It was just kind of a fun, I'm not I'm probably your typical like lazy social media user. You know, I occasionally post, and when I'm bored, I scroll through Instagram or Facebook and like stupid things. But it was actually an instance where I thought Facebook was doing a good thing, whereas this, you know, this group chat thing just kind of evolved, and all of a sudden people were sending pictures. Steve sent a ton of really cool stuff, really old stuff too, things I'd never seen of the clay people and the gelatin skeletons, and some of the groups that preceded us. That was just fun. It was fun. So, and then, we got to see the photos of the library case, the display case, where folks had dropped off a lot of, memorabilia. You printed some things up for us since I couldn't quite get there from California. Printed up some old articles about the skeptics that were in the Frederick News Post, and some of Steve's flyers. And looks like from the photos I saw, there was a snallygaster sitting in the a real snallygaster, a live snallygaster, copy of the album sitting in the display case. So yeah, it was just really cool. I mean, it happened really fast too.
Yeah.
So I mean, it all happened in the last 2 weeks or something. That's been evolving. So I'm excited. I'm hoping I'll either watch it if it's streaming or zoom in if that's possible. But otherwise, I'm really excited to hear about all the folks that are going to be on the panel. People that were there back in the day, certainly, and involved, like Rick Knoll behind the scenes, who was kind of helping fan the flames for the various bands. So yeah, it's exciting.
Steve, anything you want to say?
Like I said, I'm not good with words.
The one thing I want to say about this generation, about the 80s generation, specifically in Frederick, and one of the things I've always tried to be passionate about, and what led to the original series that we did in 2019, the three of us, when we go and we look at Frederick today, it's not the city that we knew of our younger years. And I believe very much it was your generation, the 80s generation, and that you guys that made like this homegrown art, homegrown music as viable as anything in Baltimore or DC. That, that this community can make art that's important, as good as, you know what I mean? And I do believe it's that 80s generation in Frederick that really helped to make music and art part of the downtown fabric, right? My smallest claim to fame is having opened some of the first like art galleries on Market Street, including, I remember Stephen showing you in the early 90s it was Megaphone Music. Jason Willett had Megaphone Music. Me and Ed Ramsberg had a gallery in the rear of it. And I remember at one of your openings that you had the brain mold, the Jello brain mold, and I still have two of those brain molds in storage. So I've kept a brain mold, and it's by Stephen Blickenstaff Jello brain mold. But anyway, so I digress. Let's go back to. I wanted to share Frederick. Will you pull up the image, Nick, real quick? Of this is our third still. Stephen did this for me in 1995. I got to teach film at the Delaplane Visual Arts Center in downtown Frederick for a couple of years. And I asked Stephen, like, my only requirement was that it felt Frederick and that it had a Super 8 camera in it. And I've always loved this image. We did it out on T-shirts, posters, and I just wanted to share it with the audience. So let's go back to the original The Skeptics picture. There we go. And I'm going to ask you guys to talk about the earliest days of getting together and how the Skeptics originated. And I'll start with Andy first, please.
Cool. Well, it all goes back to, and I think this came up in the group chat, the FCC Battle of the Bands. I'm pretty sure it was I want to say like March 1984, something like that. It was early 84. So it kind of brought together all these different worlds. You know, I grew up in Braddock Heights, attended Middletown High School, so did Dennis Crowley. He and I were in a band at the time with another friend of ours, Randy Painter, called The Flood, which was doing this kind of, very ponderous, psychedelic, Doors-inspired stuff that we were doing. And so we entered this Battle of the Bands. Dennis and I were both students at FCC at the time. and we met all these incredibly cool people that we didn't know existed, like Steve and Eric Puglisi and Chris Gates and Mina Forsythe and Rob Pearsall and Todd Clipp. Pat Fable was our friend as well, and we had off and on played in bands together too prior to that, and he was there. And I kind of feel like Pat connected with the Clay people, and that somehow morphed into the Subterraneans. I might be emitting some steps in there. And the Gelatin Skeletons and the Flood decided to do a show together at the Braddock Heights roller rink. So we rented the rink, I think, for $25. We bought all our stuff and set up, and we had our own combined, PAs or something. I remember we set up both bands at the far end. So we were just like beside each other. And we both played. And from what I remember, we both liked each other's music. I really liked the kind of more jaunty new wave, post-punk vibe of what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I was, I've been stagnating for a while, kind of in my 60s. Thing, and I thought it was really exciting, the energy and kind of the creativity that they brought to their music.
Yeah.
And Dennis was the one that suggested, like, hey, we should jam with Ben and Steve. So one rainy, very rainy day, like shortly after that, in the spring, I guess this was just leading up to Groundhog's Day, so it was really winter, I suppose. We went down to the Music Trader and we talked to Ben and we asked if he wanted to jam with us. And he was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I still remember him calling Steve and I, hearing his half the conversation. And he was like, yeah, no, well, we would just be jamming. Yeah, no, it doesn't mean that the Gelatin Skeletons are going to break up. We're just going to get together and jam. I guess Steve had some trepidations. He was feeling, it's funny, out here in LA, everybody plays in 10 bands. There's no real sense of, but back then it was like you were in a band. It was like a club or a gang. And you felt this loyalty to your band. So I totally get that. And so Steve was kind of like, what are you talking about, Ben? But we did it. We got it together. Again, that's what I'm remembering, is that rainy day going out to Steve's mom's house, his parents' house in Yellow Springs, and getting his drums. I think we had Dennis Crawley's Honda Civic, and we loaded everything in somehow and went up to Braddock and set up, and the four of us just started playing. And it sounds so cliche, but I really feel like it was one of those things where we just started playing and it just sounded good, and we all just kind of looked at each other. We're like, yeah. I think one of the first things we played was a song called "In the Closet" that was on our very first demo, and had kind of a, it was like Ben and I played these kind of cool guitar harmonies together, kind of. If I were to look back now, I'd say maybe it had kind of like a television feel or something, but I didn't even know who they were at the time. But very Stratocaster, Fender, twangy guitars, and Steve's monstrous surf beat keeping everything together, and Dennis's very melodic bass line playing. It just all, I think we were like, I don't know what our first gig is. Maybe Steve could pick up with that, but maybe it was the Battle of the Bands. I don't know, the Baltimore one. But it seemed like it all happened very quickly. I feel like it could be a newspaper article spinning, like the montage, like, and then, we're on the cover of the Frederick News Post.
What would you like to say about the beginning, Stephen, when you first got together with Andy to play music? What were your feelings?
I was like excited about it, but also nervous, just because I had a very close circle of friends, and I'm kind of a shy person.
Yes. Yeah.
But, the idea of going to play music with people who I don't know made me nervous. But, once I, started hanging out with them, I immediately felt like, hey, these guys are my friends,
Right.
Just
right
off the bat. So, it only took a few seconds to get used to that. And then also, playing with musicians that were just like really, really good.
Yes.
Way better than what I was capable of doing, but it made me play better, because I had to try to keep up with what they were doing.
Nick, do you want to bring up one of the flyers we picked, one of the Skeptic flyers? This is I picked a bunch of the different flyers, and let's go ahead and go to the Deadly Spawn album. That's the next one. Okay. And then you can bring those gentlemen back up, both Steve and Andy. And we'll pick up with this. The thing I've always been fascinated with, and I was speaking to you earlier, Steve, about this, is especially in that 80s era in Frederick, there was a very eclectic collection of musicians and artists, right? When you went to Frederick, you could hear all kinds of different sounds, all kinds of different music. As I shared with you, when I first met Pat Favel, it was rockabilly Pat, right? That was in his rock. I think it was the rocket scientist era. When I first met Mick Herbert, right? He was doing the stand-up bass, and it was the first time I'd ever heard that kind of music. So I would very much like for both of you guys to share with the audience just what the community, what the art community in Frederick, Maryland was like in the mid 80s. I'll start with you, Steve. What would you like to say? What are some of your memories from back then?
My memories were that it was very easy to find other people like myself who were into interesting stuff because there were so few of us.
Right.
So, we would just kind of be, in this world of like country farmer type people. Not that there was anything wrong with that, but it just wasn't exciting to me personally. So if I found somebody else who liked the kind of music or artwork or whatever that I was into, immediately I wanted to know them because I
Hmm.
kind of felt like they would fit in to my my life perfectly and be good, probably be good friends.
Yes.
So a lot of the people that I met, like Andy and Pat Favel, like we're through the FCC Battle of the Bands because that was the first time I remember seeing both of those, Andy and Pat, and it was just really cool to see that there were other people out there, doing this stuff. Because until then, it was just my close friends that I went to school with,
Hmm.
and there were maybe like a dozen of us at most. And then all of a sudden my eyes were open because I found that there were more people in Frederick that shared my ideas and love of creativity.
Andy, same question to you. Your thoughts and memories of the downtown art community circa 1980s.
Yeah, I mean, it was very similar. Growing up on Braddock and going to Middletown, there was Dennis, there was Pat and I, and we had a little network of friends that were similarly minded. But it was the three of us definitely who kind of morphed through some different bands together. At one point, Pat and I were in a band called Midwife Frog. That was more like a psychedelic blues band. And I think at one point we were actually called something like the Psychedelic Blues Band. But again, it was when we kind of met everyone. And there, it was an exciting time, especially that mid early 80s, kind of before the Skeptics were together. I know the only lifeline I really kind of had was things like Saturday Night Live and David Letterman, where I was starting to see artists that I hadn't heard of yet, Elvis Costello or
Hmm.
the Specials or even the Flying Lizards or the B-52s or Devo, because I hadn't really tuned into a lot of the cool, post-punk and new wave stuff that was coming out of the late 70s, probably until about 79 or 80 when I started seeing that stuff on Saturday Night Live. So by the time I met Steve and all the other guys from, and I have to mention too, part of that joining of forces were the political blockheads and Jim Gates. And I had a really funny, embarrassing moment where I was standing at the little FCC cafeteria thing, and I was at a table with a bunch of people, and I was like, "Yeah, and there's some band called the Political Blockheads. I heard they don't even tune their instruments." And Jim looks up and he's like, "That's not true." Yeah, that's our band. We immediately became friends after that, and I saw them play and loved what they did. And I remember playing some parties like in what's that area out beyond FCC, Clover Hill, Cloverland, or something, whatever that area is out there. Playing some different house parties out there with the political blockheads, and again, some kind of a flood pre-Skeptics thing. So yeah, I feel like it was really ripe. I think we were all a little bit, starved for a bigger community of people that were into similar things. So for me, it was very much about that merging of the TJ, Frederick world with the Middletown Braddock world, and then suddenly it was big enough to, I feel like, gain a little steam, and we all started joining forces. There were some interesting venues that were willing to take a chance on us. I remember one kind of disastrous show, though it's a fond memory, with early days of the Skeptics, with all four of us, with Ben playing the Brown Pelican, which, if you know that restaurant or bar, it's really small. And there's this stage in the corner, and we were down there going at it full force, acid rain, idle time, whatever. And the owner, kept coming out. And I remember Steve used to do a really good impersonation. He's like, the key to this club is quiet. And we just kind of nod, and then we just go back into the next song. Amps on 10. That did not, blossom into any kind of a fruitful relationship. But other places like the Carroll Creek Cafe, which used to be the Carroll Creek Dam before it moved uptown, they would let us play pretty regularly. There was a Chinese restaurant called the Blue Dragon, I think, where we played pretty regularly. And of course, in the streets, which was, I guess, part of that whole Frederick revitalization thing. I think prior to that time, downtown Frederick was a little grimy looking, with power lines going down the street between the buildings. And some point in the early 80s, I guess they kind of beautified Frederick. They put the power lines under the sidewalks, spruced things up, and, started, and maybe this already existed, but they started doing things like in the streets. And that was one of our first big gigs where, again, I think we met a lot of people, or a lot of people came out to see us. I can't remember. I think that was, we did it at least 3 or 4 times. I'm trying to remember which stage we were on. I want to say we were up by that paint store up on like the corner of Market and maybe 5th or 6th Street. I don't know. But I just remember there being a really big crowd out there. And interestingly enough, that was where I met my future wife. I handed her a flyer. And apparently she told her sister she was going to marry me one day. Jokingly, I'm sure, but as fate would have it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Nick, if you don't mind, we're going to skip still 5 and 6. Let's go to still 7. Is Mr. Fink in the waiting room? Nope. All right, let's go to still number 7. This is this looks like downtown Frederick, Maryland. I thought this was a great image. So we'll start with this one. We'll go with Steven. Do you remember what show this is, and talk a little bit about playing in downtown Frederick?
Yeah, that was definitely in the street, and I don't remember which year that would have been, but
I think it might have been the second year, because Ben wasn't with us. It's just the 3 of us. And I know there's a picture of us from a later year with Kevin playing bass. And that one's actually the one up by the paint store there on 5th or 6th Street or whatever. So this, I think, was really downtown. My memory is like we were right there on Market Street, somewhere close to Patrick.
Near like Old Town Tavern or something?
Yes, maybe. I think so.
Yeah, because the shingles out there. I have a vague memory of like at one point in the show using my cool Gretsch double anniversary. I think it was like 1960 or something. But anyway, it was a beautiful guitar, and it played beautifully, but it was really hard to keep in tune. It had a floating bridge and stuff. And that's probably what I was doing in the picture. Probably trying to tune. Yeah, definitely. I remember that. I remember that day.
That's awesome. Just because I'm not sure what's going on with Johnny Fink, and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get him on the episode. Let's go ahead and take a look. There's a music video that you guys have put together for the Worry Beads. This is clip 140th anniversary. Do you mind if we go to that, Nick? We'll play that out, and then I'll get everyone's response, and we'll talk about some of the other images I have on the... So this is for Worry Beads, and this is you guys.
It sounded like an a cappella version.
Yeah, it was weird. Hopefully it sounded okay out there for the rest. Yeah, it sounded like it was like just the vocals.
And we'll go ahead and bring up the image that we have for Johnny Fink, which is still number 9, which announces the worry beads. And unfortunately, I'm not sure we didn't get Johnny on. Very much would love to have him on at some point. I love all of his graphics. I love everything that he does. And very much I'm happy that he works with our friends, Atomic Mosquitoes, as well as the Skeptics. So I'm going to open with Steve. Steve, I want you to share with the audience a little bit about Johnny Fink and what it's like to work with Missing Fink Records. And here, I want to pull this up. This is also one of my collectibles. I have my Missing Fink. This is, and I know, Steve, you did this one as well. This is a creature surfing shindig. I bought this about 2019, I guess. And I love it. I love all your artwork. You know that. So please share with us Johnny Fink and Missing Fink Records. Just what's it like working with these guys?
You talking to me or talking
to
Johnny?
Steve. Steve, you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, Johnny's great to work with because he lets me do pretty much whatever I want. He comes up with an idea and he says, yeah, go ahead and do it. I know you'll do something I like, So it's like so different than working with most people who have an idea already in their mind. I mean, Johnny has an idea, he has a concept, but he doesn't like have me change anything. He just trusts that I'll come up with something that, he'll like, and he always does. So it's really nice working with him. And it's really fun being able to, do graphics that represent all these different bands on his label.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. It's a dream job.
I think he has some incredible talent too. I know that you guys have done some incredible shows at Vinyl. Is it Hub City Vinyl over in Hagerstown? So I'm hoping that one time when he's doing one of the Hagerstown shows, maybe we could get a couple of the guys in studio. So same question to you, Andy. So far, what your experience has been like with Mr. Fink?
It's basically all been indirectly through Steve, but I was super excited when Steve told me that Missing Fink Records was interested in releasing Worry Beads. So yeah, I was actually looking forward to meeting him. I haven't met him yet, so hopefully I'll get to meet him in the future here at some point. But yeah, I love all the stuff. I've been watching. I love the Atomic Mosquitoes, and I always like to try to keep up with the various things that Steve's doing, or whenever he does a new record cover or something, when he posts it. My impression of Missing Fink Records is that it's a very cool label with a lot of cool stuff, and the fact that Steve does a lot of their covers, already suggests that it's down my alley. So I look forward to, I'm super excited that that he was interested in releasing this, the Worry Beads on vinyl, and looking forward to meeting and working with him in the future here.
No, I agree with you 100%. We'll close with a couple of things. If you don't mind, Nick, can we pull up still number 8, the Cramps cover? Take a look at this. Awesome. Now, Steve, this is by far your most famous image. It's incredibly reproduced. Please share with our audience. Tell for people that don't know the story, how this happened, what year it was. Please share the story with the audience on how you managed to get this Cramps cover. And you can go ahead and bring that down, Nick. I love the image. What year was that, Steve? And share with the audience what the experience was like, how it happened.
Well, I was going to go see the band play the old 930 Club in Washington, D.C., and I would always give them artwork after the show so I could, talk with them and get them to sign my album cover. And this was a piece that was drawn on Halloween Day, 1983, and the show was, I think, November the 1st, I believe. I think it was like either the next day or something at the 930 Club. So I took this artwork to give them as a gift, and they really liked it. And I didn't expect anything beyond that because I'd given them other artwork before. But then not long after that, I was contacted and asked if they could use the artwork for an album cover. And of course, I was delighted that they would want to use
Right.
it for an
Yeah.
album cover.
Yeah. How old were you? How old were you?
I was 21 years old
21.
when I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were your favorite band at the time?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
could they not be?
Yeah. No, I love that. And then I want to share. Let's do still number 11. I didn't know that the Cramps cover was from a Halloween day. This is an image you did for the Blue Elephant Art Center for a Halloween party. For those who don't know, I'm an original member of the Blue Elephant Art Center. I'm one of the founding guys, 1998. Spent 5 years with the Blue Elephant Art Center, and I've always loved our relationship. I had one last image I wanted to share, and we'll bring this thing to a close. Nick, will you bring up number 12? All right, this is Micro Sinfest. Blickenstaff. Steve did projector head for our friend Skiz Azek, a mutual friend of ours. Micro Sinfest was incredible. And can you put Steve up again and Andy? Steven, I wanted to pay you this compliment. It is the same compliment I paid to Skiz at the 2019 show that you guys, the Skeptics show. I said to him, your friendship has done nothing but enrich my life. So thank you for your friendship. All these years, you're an amazing artist, a great guy, a great human being, fantastic mind. Andy, it's been, like I said, you're Mr. Mojo Rising to me. You're this mythical Frederick figure that I just, all of my friends spoke about you with such reverence and awe. I mean that. And when I first got to meet you in 2019, you lived up to every part of that. So it was, one of the things I love, and to talk to you guys, is like this whole idea that you're still producing music, that music and art is part of your life for your life span. And the one thing, Andy, when we met, your son played with you guys in that 2019 show. So that, in any way that you guys want to talk about the power of art in your lives, the meaning of it, and why it to encourage other young people to pursue this for a life, whatever you want to say about being an artist and a musician. I ask you guys. Start with you, Andy.
Well, I just flipped over to the picture from the show. My son Clayton and I.
Yes.
And is that Steve? Is that the bass player of the Atomic Mosquitoes who took these photos? I'm trying to think who it was.
Probably the bass player for Killers from Space, I believe.
Oh, okay, Mike. Yeah. Mike. But anyway, he took great photos.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. But anyway, I just wanted to share that. Yeah,
I love that.
I've always, that's pretty much, since I was 12 years old, knew I wanted to make music and be in a band. Actually, earlier than that, I used to sit there with my Iron Butterfly and Cream records and, listen and look at the pictures on the back of the cover and imagine very unlikely scenarios in which I was getting to join the band. And then we started forming our own, little garage bands, and eventually it led to the whole thing with the Skeptics, and came out to LA in the early 2000s with the brilliant idea in my mid-late 30s of trying to relaunch my music career. And some cool stuff happened. I had a cool band called the Reversibles, and we had some songs show up in some films and TV and stuff like that. Just released our album that was never released last summer. That's available out there. So I'm always doing stuff. I've got a bunch of projects. I just released an album back in October of my current kind of singer-songwriter, psychedelic-y folk stuff that I'm doing, which is almost more like what I was doing before the Skeptics. Really, I've always kind of leaned towards that folky psychedelic vibe, which is why the Skeptics were so much fun, because it was such a more lively, upbeat thing than I was used to doing. And my son and daughter are both musicians and artists, and they both make amazing music and amazing visual art too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I feel like that whole experience really did shape. And then meeting my wife, back in the context of all of that, and she's also an artist and writer. So I just feel like that whole 80s experience with meeting Steve and all the other folks that I came into contact with through FCC, and then eventually when the band started playing out and kind of became a little scene, really did kind of form, I feel like, the blueprint or whatever that,
Yes.
for the rest of my life I was going to be involved
Yes.
with making art or music or writing poetry or whatever it is. But definitely once you feel that gratification of being part of a community and sort of that spark, it never goes away. So, I thank that experience, for me being now just having turned 60 and still at it.
Yeah.
So looking forward to continuing on.
Stephen, what would you like to say about that?
Just that, I'm thankful for all my friends that I've had all through my life who were creative. And, ever since I could hold a pencil or a pen, I was always drawing or painting. And I remember in third grade, a band came to our school to play a bunch of pop songs or something. I don't even remember what, but it was like a rock and roll band. And I remember they had set up some classes where you could play, learn to play instruments, and they had drum lessons, which was basically just taking drumsticks and hitting on a piece of wood. But, it was a start. And, after that, I bought my own drum set once I got into high school, or out of high school, I guess. And then, just have always been doing both all my life and been surrounded by friends that are into doing the same thing. So we just kind of keep each other going. And I can't imagine it any other way.
I've always I've thought when we talk like this and that era that we talk about, the 80s and the 90s in Frederick, is just this a very cross pollination of ideas. I always felt very fortunate that I met Michelle Lally at Shepherd, and through her I met a bunch of musicians friends. I put shows on in the late 80s in Shepherdstown, but that's how I got introduced to the Frederick arts community, and it had an incredible impact. Frederick was the core of my life. 2 reviews in the Washington Post with the Blue Elephant. So, Frederick will always be part of my consciousness, and I'm just happy to see it recognized inside of the city, that art is important inside the city. You have, we talk about Sky Stage. They've dedicated that space to live musical performances. You have the Delaplane Visual Arts Center right across the street, and there's a lot of art galleries on Market Street now, and there's still a lot of spaces left and dedicated to the arts. So I look and talk to you guys and the figures from the 80s. There was nothing there. We talk about what it was, all the changes that are made are after Carroll Creek. But I really do believe that it was this generation that helped, shape Frederick and what it's become as a city that supports its arts. So I'm excited about this project that we're doing on the 24th. Frederick County Library, Seabird's Art. We're right down on Carroll Creek, right across the street from Sky Stage. It's a beautiful space. We're going to be recording it. Andy, we'll do what we can to see if we can get you to be part of the live stream. We're going to record and post it, as well as you mentioned the images inside of the group chat. Between now and then, me and Nick are going to get together and put it together as a slideshow. We're also recording with Andy Roth and Brian Sefcik to promote this thing on the 24th. It's been a pleasure having both of you guys on the show. Andy, true pleasure to get to meet you in 2019, to get to have you on the show again. Or not again, but to get to talk to you in this way. This has been fantastic. And you'll always be my Mr. Mojo Rising. You'll always be this mythical figure. So I wish you nothing but success. Stephen, I hope you know how much we love you, and everyone at Atomic Mosquitoes. one of my favorite. Nick had a dream about you when this was during COVID, and Nick, tell the dream real quick, and we'll close with this. Oh, he doesn't have a microphone, but you lost your theremin, and then we find out that you had a car wreck that night, couldn't make the show. So that was that was crazy. That was crazy. But we did that on live stream. That's on Seven Arts too. But I wish you guys nothing but success in the future. Anything you all want to plug? Say anything? All right. I'll see you guys soon. Steve, I hope you come out on the 24th to the library event. I'd love to see you. I'll send a copy of this to Rick Knoll, and thank you both for being on the show. All right.